This conference will now be recorded.
All right, welcome everyone. My name is Colonel Kirk Spangenberg. I'm the president of the Association of Marine Corps Logisticians. Appreciate everybody taking the time to join us tonight. We're blessed to be joined by Brigadier General Kevin Stewart, and I'll introduce him in just a second. But before we got started, I want to say just a couple of things. First, this is part of our professional development portfolio. This is the first in what we hope is a series of many Ask the Author sessions. Or as you know, General Stewart recently published an article in the Marine Corps Gazette that he'll talk to us about as far as some of his observations from his time as the commanding general of 2nd Marine Logistics Group. So a couple things before we get started. One is sort of the official disclaimer that for me, I'm an active duty colonel, but I do this in my sort of personal capacity. So we keep those things separate, which is all good, and to keep our ethics correct. And though we're very thankful to have General Stewart with us today, this is in a personal capacity, and it does not imply any sort of official endorsement or anything like that. So we just want to be clear about all that, so we keep that clean. A couple of business rules is as normal. But we've been doing this long enough to know to sort of stay on mute until we talk, and that's all good. I think we'll have a nice conversation here in a little bit. We'll open it up for question and answers. Just a reminder, of course, that we are being recorded for the time of this presentation. So that's really good. I wanted to talk to you really just a little bit about the association itself. And many of you have been with us for a while, or sort of repeat offenders on our online webinars and that sort of thing. So good to see some familiar faces out there, and also really good to see some new faces as well. Many of you may have gotten our recent newsletter where we talked a little bit about how AMCL is really focused this year on how we are going to deliver value, increase member engagement, and build partnerships as we really push to advance and cultivate the Marine Corps' logistics, supply chain, combat surface support professional community. And we put out there some opportunities for some opportunities available to our members on how you can really be involved and contribute your time, your talent to generate the momentum so that we can really do more for our community and our members. That's been a part of our vision. So there things that you may have read about include we've got sort of the big one is this year will be the inaugural AMCL Logistics Symposium, and we're forming a planning committee that you can have an opportunity to be a part of. There's going to be a kickoff meeting here real soon. Watch your email, watch your social media. There's going to be a small group of volunteers who are coming together to work with a support provider that we have a relationship with that will help us build a really good, powerful, influential symposium in the 4th quarter of this year. And that's going to be really exciting. I hope you have a chance to be a part of that. We're also kicking off planning for our awards committee. We're already got a relationship out there with McLeod to recognize some of their innovative writers. It's going to be really exciting. We're looking to expand that. The opportunity to be a part of that. There's of course always opportunities to get your own ideas out there through the log blog and some of the other online presence that we have with our Slack channel where the conversations are. But for those of you who have just ideas you want to get out there, and maybe it's not something you necessarily want to publish in one of the professional journals, or maybe you do, that's fine. But we have the log blog out there. It's immediate flash to bang. We get it to you. We can help you write it. We have a sort of editor assistance program where you can get with our folks, where we can kind of help you kind of refine your writing, if you like, for some of that. And we can get your ideas out there and generate that conversation to keep our community going. So there's lots of opportunities to do that, where you can be involved and kind of get this going. We're also really focused on starting the local presence. This is going to be even more important as the threat from COVID continues to decrease and the cases go down, and more things open up that will allow us to get together more and more in person. We really want to have those local presence at the installations where the Marines are. Enhance that relationship with with all the community, so we can get together and do some of those events that we like to do. In the past, we've visited an Amazon fulfillment center. We toured a brewery, looked at their supply chain. we went and saw Local Motors up there in the National Capital Region, that company that 3D prints autonomous vehicles, and got a sort of a tour of their innovation ecosystem. Really neat stuff. And we're looking for opportunities to set up those types of events at local installations for our members to be involved in. So that's really, really exciting. And for those of you out there who want to be involved in that, maybe you want to be a local coordinator, maybe you want to be a chapter president or whatever, there's really opportunity to do that. I encourage you to take a look at our website. There's a link out there at marinecorpslogistics.org where you can fill out a volunteer form or an interest form, and we'll get in touch with you and talk to you about next steps. So there's a lot going on that's really exciting. I hope you can get involved in it. So, but I've talked way too much. I want to take a minute here to introduce to you, I think probably everybody here knows Brigadier General Kevin Stewart. I won't spend a whole lot of time on his bio because you know who he is, and I want to respect everybody's time, and you can read about that. But certainly from his time as the Commanding General of 2nd MLG, he put together some really, really powerful observations that he's going to share with us today, and then we can have a question and answer session at the end. So, General, without any further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, hey, great, and thanks, and it's good to see many friendly old friends, some old new friends out there, and so look forward to reconnecting maybe after this as well. So, I'm currently the chief of the Global Operations Center at Transcom, and so I've been here for about a year out at Scott Air Force Base, and then as Kirk mentioned, I had the greatest opportunity of a lifetime to be the CG of the 2nd Marine Logistics Group. First, I'll definitely thank Colonel Spangenberg and the whole AMCL team. I really applaud your efforts to try to build this forum and get people talking. It's definitely needed. So, good on you. I am a paid member, so whether that's an official endorsement, I did send you my money. I'm not sure I've gotten a lot of benefit out of it yet, other than being a member, but no, I'm just teasing you. But I think so for the way ahead tonight, I'm going to talk for like 15 or 20 minutes at the most. And then any questions you've got, I'll stay on here, as long as you want. Again, I start back on the CG as 2nd MLG, and I always said it was the best job and the freaking easiest job. It was the best job because I got to freaking observe the Marines and sailors every single day, just doing tremendous things to support the MEF. And it was the easiest job because I was just surrounded by a tremendous team of talented people, and I just got to sit there and be the kind of the guy that got a lot of the accolades. Before we get into the logistics piece, I will start with just a leadership story, because I think as Marines, logistics is important, but at the end of the day, we live and breathe leadership, and that's what separates us. And to be a good logistician, you got to be a good leader. And this is a lesson that I learned as a second lieutenant, and I've carried with me throughout my entire time in the Marine Corps. And I would argue that it's one of the key reasons why I've been blessed to even be in the position that I am today. So brand new second lieutenant, 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines, 1st unit. You're ready to go. Like, this is the moment you've been thinking about it at TBS and trained for, to go talk to the new Marines in terms of telling them what your guidance is. So I got them all together in this classroom. They're sitting down. I come in, I'm standing up in front of them, and I had the greatest, laying out the guidance that we were going to do and all the tremendous things we were going to do, and was talking about how great, citizens they were, great Marines they were, and all the tremendous things they were going to accomplish. And I kind of just threw out this rhetorical question. I was like, hey, I know we're going to do that because there are no idiots in this room. And I said, if any of you think you're an idiot, stand up. And of course, there's always the one Lance Corporal, right? And so this one Lance Corporal, he jumps up in the back of the room and he stands up at attention. And I was like, hey, Lance Corporal, didn't you hear what I said? I said, if you think you're an idiot, stand up. Why are you standing up? Are you not an idiot? Are you telling me you're an idiot? And he said, no, sir, I just didn't want you standing up there by yourself. So the lesson there is to ask good questions, because I asked a really bad question. So hopefully you all got some better questions for me tonight. But so as Kirk mentioned, at the MLG, the best opportunity, a little over a year into the job, I kind of just took a minute to think about everything that I had seen. And I tried to write these observations more forward looking, in terms of these are challenges that I think we need to solve. And if you read the thing, I didn't necessarily answer them. And I'm not the smartest guy in the world, so I don't necessarily have the answer. But I think they're key things that, as an institution, as an enterprise, as an organization, that as we look to the future, that we've got to work our way through to be successful in terms of where the commandant's taking us. So I'll walk you through some of these, and just real high level on a couple of them, and then I may skip a few and lump a few. And as I hit each one, I'm just going to read it in general, and then I'll ad lib on kind of what my perspective of it is. But the first one was, operational level logistics is not adequately resourced or designed to meet future warfighting requirements. And where I got this all the time at the MLG. We'd be in these planning meetings thinking about the Rush O plan, and it was like, well, who's doing operational logistics? And they would be like, hey, MLG, you're going to do it. And I'm like, no, read my freaking mission statement. I provide tactical logistics to the MEF. Okay, so hey, component, Mar 4-year. Hopefully no one on here from Mar 4-year, but I mean, God bless them. But I mean, we really think that the staff at Mar 4-year is going to be able to execute the full scope of operational level logistics for that scale of an O plan? Now, if you read the doctrine, they've got these codes of how you would build that team to do it, but that's a pickup team, and I just think that it's something that we need to solve. And a lot of times I also hear this discussion, we talk about componency in the Marine Corps. There was discussion at one point like, hey, 2MEF, let's get rid of Mar 4-year and we'll be the component as well. And it's like, well, are you resourced to do operational logistics? I don't know the exact answer to solve it, but it's something that we have to solve, because it's going to become even more critical in terms of the connectors into the JLENT of how we're going to sustain and operate in the future. So observation number 2, existing logistics systems are not capable of meeting future warfighting requirements. And I will say up front that I've got a lot of like personal scar tissue on this one, and I'm probably biased to a complete degree, but I will say unequivocally and take it to my grave, GCSS Marine Corps is not the system that's going to enable the future fight. And I've yet to see a real good plan of what we're doing for log IT. And we've been working it for years, and we've dug ourselves such a freaking deep hole with GCSS Marine Corps in terms of the resources that it's consuming, that how do you transition out of that piece? I don't know, but I think we got to start planting the ground in terms of where we're going, with our log IT systems. Otherwise, you know, we're going to be we're going to culminate because it's not going to meet the demand. It doesn't meet it today. How the hell is it going to meet it in 2030? I'm gonna read 3, 4, and 5 together because I think they're all kind of related, and then I'll generally talk about it. So 3 is the current structure of the MLG is not optimized to meet future warfighting requirements. So that's 3, just the way the MLG is organized. And then 4, the direct support CLB is not designed to provide all necessary logistics support to a regimental combat team. You know, this DSCLB that's a freaking truck company, it doesn't make any sense. And then 5, you know, the decision to do away with the X5 regiments has left a material readiness shortfall in the MEF. And I kind of grouped all those from in terms of like structure and how we're organized. And I would just say, you know, looking back, and if we're honest with ourselves, you know, post OIF1, we have been in a constant state of reorganization. You can walk the dog back on all these, whatever you want to call it, structure changes, FIS rigs, McKenzie groups. I mean, there have been so many things, and there are so many. When you start doing like tactical level detail of our TOs, there are so many freaking errors, mistakes, problems. And then the law community we've been the bill payer, and so we've kind of hollowed, you know, things out. And it's easy. I always said it's easy in a non full combat execution mode to play the shell game to meet requirements. So, oh, okay, hey, this exercise, okay, we'll task organize, build this thing out, go forth, do great things, everyone's high-fiving and doing great. Meanwhile, though, you haven't supported the full MEF. If you had everyone else doing everything else, you wouldn't have enough Schlitz to move it all over and distribute it across the AO. There's just not enough capacity in the organization. So I'm hopeful that 2030, you know, plants the flag in terms of the way ahead. My fear, though, is that the next commandant will be 2035 and it'll be something else, and we're never gonna, we gotta like, hey, this is kind of, now at the same time, I'm not naive enough to don't think we need to evolve and adapt and change and things like that, but there's some things that just need to be kind of some stabilization within the MLG, and the years that it hasn't been have just created real challenges across the organization. Observation 6 is intermediate supply and maintenance processes are not designed to meet future warfighting requirements. And I'll just say, I mean, our processes are archaic. I mean, we've been doing it the same way since I was a second, you know, lieutenant. We even brought in the new state-of-the-art GCSS Marine Corps and made it do the way we did with the old systems to continue those same archaic processes. And so I think we really have to be willing to do things differently in terms of our processes. And related to the previous ones about the organization, I don't get the sense right now, we're focused on an org chart for 2030, but what are the processes that will enable the logistics support that we're going to modernize? You know, years ago, it didn't necessarily yield the greatest results, but they were on to something. They talked people, processes, and technology. We had this operational architecture. We had realignment of maintenance, realignment of supply. We had these initiatives, and we were moving out, but they never came to fruition and made the changes that we need. And then since then, we just have kind of, hey, this is what we do, and we do it, and we become so enamored with the org chart, and that's the focus. And I've been in so many debates about the freaking org chart of the MLG. I finally just said, I really don't care what the thing looks like anymore. Just make sure that a unit that's on there has everything that it needs to be successful. Logistics officer, all the right people, it's got admin, it's got the systems, and then let people figure out, the rest. So, so I think processes are something that have great opportunity to be improved. I'll skip 7. That was just about excess equipment, and a lot of focus to get rid of excess equipment. I got no issue with that, but I felt a lot of times it was just like, hey, we're getting rid of excess equipment to get rid of excess equipment. There was no real analysis to determine what was excess. Hey, we got too many trucks. Okay, well, have you really done, logistics is mathematical in many cases. This is what we got to move. This is the distances. This is the amount. And you can show me the analysis that says these number of trucks are not enough. It might be too many at Camp Lejeune for day to day, but is it too many for an O plan? I don't know. I never felt we really did the the data behind that, and still today. Observation 8 was, logistics services are given little attention, but they play an absolutely essential role. And I'll just focus on one, the expeditionary contractors. I love the concept we always hear today, hey, logistics in the Pacific is going to be hard, so it's 21st century foraging. Okay, well, hopefully we're on these remote islands, there's stuff to forage, and then hopefully you've got the contractors available to do the foraging, because there aren't enough contractors, at least in the second MLG. We didn't have enough contractors to meet day-to-day, GFM requirements, let alone if we think we're going to spread them out all over the place and we're going to be doing 21st century foraging. I'm going to skip 9, which is just this is about the Marine Logistics Group concept of echeloning C2. We struggle with this. You've got whether CLR 27 is the MLG forward in Maine, and that whole concept. At the end of the day, it's not resourced to do both. You can do one or the other. You want MEB, you can push something out and maybe do it. You want MEF, but that's an area that needs to be reviewed. And then the last one I laid out was just the current training pipeline is not producing the logistician we need to meet the future warfighting requirements. And this is, I know there's a lot of people in the training pipeline doing heroic things, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's still an industrial era model that's about mass production with the basic knowledge. And I've seen it with and Kate Murray's heard me, knows this well. Motor T mechanics. Equipment has dramatically changed in terms of the technical complexity. We haven't kept pace. I mean, I'm a supply officer. Supply officers have been getting fired since 1775. They're still getting fired today, but we still haven't given them the necessary tools with all these additional requirements that are levied on them with audit and et cetera, et cetera. It creates a significant burden on the OPFOR in terms of trying to fill that gap and ensure you can meet mission. It's a tough undertaking, and I think I give the Marine Corps a lot of credit. I mean, they're getting after it, and they recognize, they just made 10 T&E, a 3-star level command, broke it out under CD&I, and they're moving out. I always, interesting. I just saw this thing where they just made, I think, infantry training longer. It would be good to see those same kind of things in some of our log MOSs and have the same kind of enterprise backing on some of those key areas where we need those enhancements as well, just as much as the GCE. And I don't necessarily know we fall out as well in the pipeline there. But so I'll stop there. Those are 10 thoughts. I could have probably, if I took the time, could have come up with 10 more of different things. But like I said, it was an opportunity of a lifetime. I always say, as a Marine logistician, after you've been the CG, second MLG, or any MLG, there's nothing else there's no other good job to have in the Marine Corps. It's all, you're a staff weenie, as I am today. I'm a senior AO at Transcom, and that's all good, but great opportunity. So with that, I'll turn it over for any questions for me about anything.
Hey, thanks, sir. I appreciate it. I think, like the general said, we'll open up to the floor for questions. I could probably rattle off about 7 or 8 off the top of my head, but I'm going to hold to allow the audience. And Matt, jump in here if I get sideways at all. But also, as we're talking, feel free to write questions in the chat. If we're talking and you think about it and you want us to come back to it, we can do that. But I'll go ahead and pause here. And just a reminder we had a number of people join during the call, which is great. Just a reminder that we are recording this. It will be available later, so that's all good. So I'll pause here and open the floor for questions.
Hey, sir, this is Chris Fry. Used to be your LX, if you will. How's it going?
Looking good.
Good. Hey, quick question. So, your time as the EA to General Dana, when you're at INL, you got exposed to a lot of information. One of them being, the excess equipment, one of the things that EGen was tasked to kind of undergo. You compare that knowledge to, the insight that you gained after being in command at 2nd MLG. What were some of the biggest differences between what you thought when you were at Headquarters Marine Corps to, after finishing your tour in your command there?
Yeah, it's a great question, because, it's always like kind of where you sit is where you, your perspectives and opinions on issues change. Unfortunately, I was blessed to have 2 tours in Headquarters Marine Corps. I was LPC. I don't think it's called LPC anymore, and I was LPV before I went to command, and then I came back and was the EA. But I think EGen, and I'll kind of take a step back and go, I think EGen is there are so many different stakeholders in equipment management, and INL in many respects doesn't even own the decisions, and you're trying to bring all these different stakeholders together. CD&I owns the AAO, Marcor Syscom owns the life cycle support pan. You got Logcom and their role, and you got INL trying to herd these cats, and then throw in P&R, and it is just the most complex piece of machinery to try to produce good tangible results. To your specific question, what I would come back with is, though, I still felt up at Headquarters Marine Corps, it was very always reactionary. I remember seeing, hey, Commandant says we've got too many trucks. Okay, that became, we got too many trucks, get rid of trucks. And I still go back to, like, where was this, like, operational analysis, and I no slam against Egypt, but I never saw them do it from an O plan lens that goes, hey, if we're supporting this O plan and we've got to move this amount of stuff, this is the requirement and this is what we're going to need. It was always kind of just subjective driven that then drove changes. I'll even say, you know, I'll never forget being up at the EA when the when this latest structure of the MLG is out with the that did away with 25 and it made supply battalion a colonel and that whole thing. That was like written on the back of a napkin between the commandant, General Dana, at the commandant's house over one weekend. He comes back in the next day and he's got this thing, and then we're jammed, like he's in the little EA office. If you saw him in there, we're like creating a PowerPoint slide to make this thing what they had read on this, and then we send it up and it was like, yes, that's it. And then it was, you know, off to the races and make this thing, hey, go Mike Resnick down there, make all the numbers match. And we thought we were great. Hey, we've got the org chart. And that's why I go back to the org chart. Doesn't mean, you know, squat if you create these organizations that don't have what they need to be successful. So there's definitely a, I know that's kind of long-winded. There's definitely a, I think sometimes a disconnect. And I think where the OPFOR is always going to look at it from an O plan lens, I think at Headquarters Marine Corps, they don't necessarily always view it that way. So you got two different viewpoints of trying to look at the same problem. Over.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. I totally get it. Thank you.
All right, I think we had a couple coming out in the chat. John Harmon, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Sure, make me the springboard now. Thanks, Kirk. I appreciate that.
Hey, first come, first serve, right?
Sir, I mean, I've enjoyed watching you over the years. So with Force Design, and I'm living this up to my eyeballs today, there's a lot of focus on the capital L and not a lot on the capital I. And there's difficulty in figuring out what does, you know, how do we better define operationalizing installations, because that has such a huge piece to play in projecting power, you know. And when I go back and dig through books from that I find in World War II and how we did things with installations in those days, which kind of leads into EABO and what we're calling it today, but I can't find consistency at the senior levels on. We write it as a line of effort for the DC, and it's important, it's critical, but I don't think we fully understand what that means. And how do you see that from your lens as a balance of the I with the L for the service?
Yeah, no, that's a great, you know, even within INL, and everyone if you've been in INL, you know, it's big I, little L, but little L gets all the attention and focus because many, I mean, I've sat through even recently as a GO, we have these, you know, what are they called? The ILBs or whatever they are. And they invite all the installation commanders, but you know how much time we spend talking about installations? Like zip. And we spend all these time on these very like tactical, you know, logistics side, blah, 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 because that's, hey, and I will guarantee, I know General Dana will say it. I haven't talked with General Sharadi, but their learning curve when they go up there as INL and they get consumed by the I and in all the money and the support stuff, I think it just overwhelms from that perspective that there's just such a hard time to then focus on it from a operational requirement and what it means. I think people acknowledge the significance of it and importance. I just don't think anyone, I don't nothing know against MCI PAC, but how do they, you know, force that discussion to get it. That's another one. People will say that MCI pack should be, shit canned. When you're looking for a structure, is that, I don't know the answer to that one, but you bring up a great point, because I see it even at Transcom when we talk about access, basing, and oversight. For us to move the joint force around the world, at the end of the day, it's about posture and presence. Deterrence is about forward posture and presence. And if you don't have that, you're going to have a hard time. Now, the problem in the Pacific is, is that stuff going to survive the, first volley, or is it going to be left a gaping hole in the ground? I don't know. How do you address that? I don't think I answered your question, other than I think you're spot on, and I think it's just installations in the Marine Corps are such a huge requirement, and we don't train and build installations. And being somebody gets stuck being an installation commander, it's like, oh shit, I got an installation, I don't want to be an installation commander. There isn't this kind of career path. And there's more aviators that have installation experience than logisticians. I would tell John Dana, I said, sir, pretty soon an aviator is going to have more claim to become INL than a logistician, because they could have been an air station, they could have been a regional, and at that point the I is more relevant, and you have the LP guy take care of the little L piece, and we're going to have an aviator up there doing it. I don't know. So
I appreciate that insight, sir, because I've had many a debate about aviators at like MCI PAC when General Rock was out there. I mean, they're picking up speed, with how they're, because we as a service don't train, officers how to be installation commanders. Yeah. It's kind of like your point to the learning curve when when the general officer, when like General Cerroti, his first experience realistically in the Pentagon was as INL. He wasn't developed, and that goes back to, and there was another question I think in the chat line. It talks about, how do we develop strategic logistics kernels? What is important, because you have to find the balance in why installations is important, just as it is for the plans and operations. Because when I was in LPO, and you called me 1,000 times because we had 3 people trying to get our hands around the 3 biggest plans that we had, and not using that as an excuse, but resourcing them appropriately, to address those issues. Because you have LP, PO, and PL all should be linked together at all levels, and we should be developing our structure within the headquarters to kind of mirror that, so that we show the relevancy of logistics and developing strategic concepts of operations or support to support the employment. And I think we lose some of that because it depends on an individual's experience level as they come up to that level, and getting exposure early, to the younger captains and some of the majors at that point gives them the taste. So, because we all love tactical logistics, like you pointed out, that's our bread and butter. Yeah. But when I went to Marsh and learned more about operational logistics and how do we figure out that center ring, that's important. John Simpson and I sat together, for 2 years down there, fighting it out on how do we better position ourselves as a staff to support that mission. Over.
Yeah, no, well said. I couldn't say it any better than you.
We've got a question from Jocelyn Fleming. If you'd like to share your question, otherwise I can read it off for you.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, Major Jocelyn Fleming, fellow supply officer here, sir. Luckily, I haven't been fired either, but hopefully that doesn't change anytime soon. I wanted to talk to you a bit about, so over the past few decades, we've seen a big shift where the logistics community has really been focused on efficiency. And so a lot of our structures and our processes are really structured that way, thinking about things like centralized maintenance and things that we've shifted to over time. And as we look to support future operating concepts, those kind of structures just aren't going to work. And we've seen that kind of bear out already. If you are king for the day, I know you said that the answer doesn't necessarily lie in the org chart, but how would you kind of adapt our logistic structures and processes to be optimized for the future fight?
Yeah, that's a great question. You're right. We've in periods of limited resources, you kind of centralize, and we kind of slowly have went away from the after OIF 1, it was all about we're going to be postured for the fight, and we're going to be in those tactical formations. And then as slowly structure changes came, we were forced to kind of go into this morph thing of some functionals and some CLR, CLB kind of multifunctionals. And even though we've done that, we've hollowed them out. So it's like I go back to the thing about the CLB. Hey, we got these CLBs, but if we're honest with ourselves, it's a truck company. And every time that CLB went to go do something, everyone else in the MLG was given it some level of capability to be able to accomplish its mission. So I mean, from what I've seen, and I think the world of Kevin Collins, I think they're on to creating this multifunctional CLB that's capable of operating independently and able to provide all levels of all functions of log support in its to its whoever it's supporting. Now the question with that is how many of those are needed, and then I think the unknown in my mind is what you do with all the intermediate supply maintenance piece, and how does that nest with that. After OEF, we came up with on paper at one point in the Marine Corps there were 2 GS CLBs in each MEF. It made no sense to have 2 because it was like we got two smooths, 2 intermediate maintenances, etc. But there was something there in terms of where they were going that I think is an opportunity to flush it out. So again, I don't think I have a greatest answer for you, but from what I've seen in terms of where they're going with Future Force, creating a pure CLB that is able to do what it needs to do, and then we got to figure out the what we're going to do for kind of the general support piece and how that plays into it, and then make sure we've got the right C2 over top of them is kind of the starting point. But
great, thanks, sir.
Again.
All right, General, if I could just ask a question about observation 10 with training education. Certainly education, professional development is something very important to Association of Marine Corps Logisticians. And I like how in your article you point out that logisticians, you weren't talking about 0402s, you were talking about a wide variety of military occupational specialties. In your article pointed out motor T and supply. And certainly with AMCL, we're about a professional forum, not just for all fields and grades, but industry and academia as well as veterans. But to expand on your article, what are the skills that are necessary for future logisticians? Is it just to be more multifunctional? Is it to know how to code, to know how to network? What are the new skills for the future logistician?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's definitely, multifunctional. At the same time, though, that becomes kind of like the buzzword answer. Hey, we're going to create all these multifunctional logisticians out there. There are some MOSs that are pretty dang technical that I'm not sure you can have you know, a multifunctional COM-elect maintenance guy who's fixing, you know, circuit boards. So I think that's the direction that we have to go. I just think it's got to be really thought through in terms of which ones we take that avenue on and which ones we keep, you know, specialized. I mean, I think the one MOS change that I saw in the Marine Corps was we used to, you know, we merged Motor T and 0402s together at one point. You know, we've been talking about merging 43s and 51s together, and there is a right area across a variety of MOSs that we could consolidate and create a little bit more, you know, generality and still, you know, get the mission done. So I think it's a combination of both. In terms of the specific skills, you know, I think the ones you laid out are good. I hate to say it too, you know, I think the success of the Marine Corps is also just about finding the right freaking Marine. You know what I mean? It's that guy who's just a freaking somebody who's a who's a hard worker, wants to serve his country. I mean, all those things we talk about are the intangibles of being a Marine. I think you get the good individual, point him in the right direction. I mean, they'll figure out all the other, you know, technical specialties they need to be successful.
Thank you, sir.
Did we have somebody else jumping in? I was going to follow up on that one, sir. As a former schoolhouse commander, knowing full well the pressures to produce numbers according to the training input plan, and get, you know, down at Camp Johnson, it was about motor team mechanics at the entry level and just mass producing them. And, you know, at one point we actually did extend the length of the course to get a more professional, to get at least a few more days of training on some key areas. And we were pretty proud of that. And then a few years later, they went back and said, nah, if you do that, you can't produce enough. So we cut it back down again. And so you mentioned the infantry training and the move to make it longer. I think part of the idea there is to, you know, age the force a little bit. So you train longer, you retain them longer, so you don't have to recruit as many, because, you know, we anticipate only keeping 25% at the entry level past the first term. And I think the goal is, what if we get to 50%? Do you see sort of that same type of concept going into the logistics, combat service support realm, so that you can do the same basic thing, like get a older, more professional force that you're retaining longer, and that sort of thing? Is that what you mean when achieve parity, so to speak?
Yeah, I do. And I see, I think he's still a gunnery sergeant smart on there. We should ask him about the skills necessary, because I think he's the smartest Marine that I've ever met over there.
General, so it's funny, that question actually brought a bit of, you know, got my juices going a little bit. My thesis is on entry-level enlisted education, although I know we're tackling staff and CO graduate education right now as well. But I think that there's value in not trying to raise the bar for every single person. But my question was going to be, and I just came across the topography enlisted MOS today, and I've never really put any thought into it before. But in order to become a 5582 or whatever it was, I got a note here somewhere, you have to have a 4-year degree, and that's an enlisted person. There's also cyber that requires a certain amount of college education. So it's non-traditional level education in order to get MOS. I think that's not something that we have to just consider for our quote unquote smart MOSs, but it's something that brings it raises the thermometer of the entire force up. And if we can look at percentages, at enlistment, you recognize talent and you offer them education at the early stages of their career. when you inject their studies, when you inject a highly skilled, highly educated person into a group, that group performs better, that team performs better, that organization performs better. And if we do that across the force, then we're not only injecting, what you said was aging the force by bringing a more mature workforce in, but we're also bringing in more talent, more education, more experience in a lot of these fields. And you're right, with a little bit more on the return on investment by incurring an extra year or two on contract, I think is that how you get it. You'd also reduce the size of the force this way, because you wouldn't have to worry about readiness of equipment when you're bringing in ASC certified mechanics, or you're bringing in administrators that have been, they have their AA and business admin or something like that. So there is a lot of value in that. It's something that I obviously don't have the solutions for, and that's why my research is surrounded. But your thoughts are always appreciated, General.
No, I mean, I don't think I could say it any better than you. The interesting thing is, I'm not saying that I prescribe to this train of thought, but the counter argument to all these things that I heard, and not to pick on 3051s, but it was like, from a recruiter's perspective, they want certain MOSs that are at a lower bar to meet numbers. I'll never forget this one time when I was at CLR 25. We did this group exercise thing, and it just, the way it ended up was all the companies were out there all doing different things, rotating around. And in this one little side field, you had the COMELEC maintenance Marines, and next to them was storage Marines, all the 51s. And just by running around and looking at the two groups of Marines, I mean, it was night and day difference in terms of like, wow, that group just looks like they're squared away. This group just looks like a bunch of ragtags, And it kind of goes to your point though about you put some smart, boom, and people feed off of each other, and it raises everybody's game. So I mean, I think you're onto something. It's just, I think in all these things, it's finding the right balance, because you can't do it for everything, because there is this machine of trying to bring in so many people every single year and work through it. But I think having people that are talented, educated, and incentives for that, and providing them the opportunities. Maybe it's providing them opportunities once you get them in, and then after they've been in for a little while and showed a certain level of commitment to the organization, then they get those expanded opportunities. So again, I think great discussion. I don't have the greatest answer on it, but it's something that we need to address holistically.
Thank you, General.
Matt, I think we had one or two other questions in the chat window, yeah?
Mark, if you'd like to hop on.
Mark, I'm not sure what's going on. We can't hear you. I see you're not on mute, but we've got no sound. I think his question, just to jump in here, and is, I think this is you, right, Mark? What does the Air Force do that the Marine Corps has to consider implementing? Mark, give me a thumbs up. Is that what you're getting after? Okay.
No, I don't. That's a hard question to answer. I don't have that. I mean, I will say Transcom is a very Air Force centric organization. That's kind of really been in the last year, my largest exposure to them. For one, and it kind of goes back to this discussion about education. I mean, I always say they may not be the most the fittest. They might not look how we would judge a Marine in terms of posture and all those things, but in terms of being smart, talented, educated, very impressed. I mean, I've got some Air Force officers that work in Transcom, and I just blown away by the talent. So not that familiar with, can I give you a specific example? I think they do better things from an education perspective than we do. I mean, that I think we could learn from. We it's our human nature. And if we're totally honest, in many cases we punish people for going and getting higher education degrees. That's changed over the years. Oh, you got your PhD. Oh, well, you didn't get your XO billet, you didn't get this billet, you didn't get this billet, and you didn't do this. Vice, it's the same thing with going to naval postgraduate school. That was always like, oh, if I went to naval postgraduate school, it was like, oh, you got to time it exactly right, because if you don't time it right, your career is done. Because we're somewhat like, we talk about education is important, but sometimes in the rubber meets the road, those traditional things matter more, which is unfortunate. So.
Hey, General, this is Matt Seif. Good to see you again. I had one comment just to sort of add to that. Hope everybody can hear me. Is definitely the Army contributes a lot more to their education, to their quartermasters and logistics personnel. As a proud graduate of Click 3 and learning the Army Transportation Song at Fort Lee and Fort Eustis, doing that instead of going to AWS, that was an entirely additional focus that not only was great for logistics, but also for the joint training and be able to become a little bit more interoperable with the Army, which went on to being able to work with them very closely in Iraq during OIF 1 and during the backload, and again in OIF 3 or MNF West or whichever time it was, we're over there again. So I would say that, but we're very small, so we have to rely upon the Army schools, the Air Force schools to really get in. And you're exactly right about not being afforded those opportunities. I went there, so therefore I didn't go to AWS. There I was lesser of a Marine, but I was more of a logistician probably, to be able to go down and fight those problems. And also your comment earlier about UCOM or Marine Forces Europe not being operational level logistics. You're exactly right. As I left Camp Lejeune and went over to Mar 4 year and helped stand up Mar 4 AF as a plank owner and being a future ops planner and sitting through very detailed analysis of the O plans that they were encouraged to support. With 17 people on staff, there was no capability to do it, and it was all reach back through the reserves, through augmentation, through contracted support to be able to do what we were required to do in those O plans, and that was still with a fair amount of pixie dust added to it. So, I think you're exactly right, but the Marine Corps has always been a fair amount of shadow game to be able to support all the things that we've been able to do in our illustrious Marine Corps careers, and hopefully we'll have to continue it. But if we can get folks like yourself and General Dana and Andy Bergen and a bunch of others to continue to thump the table and maybe get some more of the training, because I think the training and the initiatives that you were talking about are exactly what's needed. And the last piece I would say is the smartest couple logistics planners I ever met were ones that actually were afforded the opportunity, very rare, to go through SAW and become those 0402s that actually were future ops planners that were also SAW grads, and they were incredibly smart and gifted, and we don't have enough of them. Over.
Yeah, those are great comments all around. I'll say this, and not that I'm looking rearview mirror, but I mean, and this isn't a jab in the glove, but at one point in the Marine Corps, we had McClep where we were sending Marines to Penn State, ALOC, TLOC, and those other things. And I thought they were pretty good, and we invested everything into McLog, and I think they've taken leaps and bounds. But for a period of time, it was all about building a CLB OPSO to go to OIF, OEF, and that was the singular focus. And it was like everyone else, to be damned. That's what we're going to do. And I mean, I think we're moving out of that, which is good to see. But we lost a lot of capability where we could have been building on that and still done that thing, because that was a requirement at the time based on needs. But it shouldn't have been at the for sake of all those other things that people were trying to move forward. So.
All right, General and everyone, I'm going to jump in here real quick. We're about at the end of the official part where we'll cut the recording here in a second, but I wanted to tell everybody just thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us. It's a great conversation. I encourage you to continue on the conversation. We have our online forum in the Slack channel. If you want to find that Slack channel, you can go to our website at marinecorpslogistics.org and kind of click around there and get the link to our Slack channel where we can just kind of keep these conversations going. I think some of that was actually going on in the background even while we were talking today, which is really good. So I encourage you to do that. Remind everybody once again that there'll be more opportunities for these types of forums, and there's plenty of opportunities, like I said from the beginning, to get involved, to get local chapters started, to get events going. And just log on to the website, fill out that form, and we'll get in touch with on how to do that. As always, we've got lots of room for you to share your ideas in writing, and we'll get them out there in the log blog. It doesn't have to meet any sort of length requirement or whatever, but we can help you write it as well. So or refine it and edit it. We got some good folks in there that are volunteers that like to help people develop their professional writing skills. So that's really good stuff. General Stewart, thank you for your time. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and cut the recording here, and for those who want to stay and those who have time to stay, we'll keep this open. But we'll go ahead and give a sort of virtual round of applause for the General, and appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, Matt.